Hi, I am going to cover using the extruder that we call the Super Duper Clay Extruder by Scott Creek. And we're going to start off with a hunk of clay. This is half of a 25-pound bag. And I'm just going to cut it in half with my wire. If it's coming straight from the bag, I don't need to wedge it. But if I'm incorporating pieces, let's say from an earlier project, and I have all these wedged pieces, I can wedge them all together and put them in the extruder. Do not be afraid of putting in wedged pieces from earlier coils or anything, a failed pinch pot, and putting it in the extruder. Okay, so our extruder comes with dies, and these are the dies these are actually homemade in the wood shop here at Dominican. And you can see that the size of the hole, the diameter of the hole, dictates how big your coil is going to be. Right, so I have multiple options. I also have dies from Scott Creek, the manufacturer, and they're going to be on an aluminum plate, and the die is steel. Anyways, it has lots of different cutouts for different shapes. So you can see that this particular set is for making handles. Our die sits inside of the bottom of the extruder, which comes out. And so it just sits in there like this. And now we're going to go over to the extruder and we're going to mount it onto the larger object. So I have this same model in my home studio. The only difference is that my barrel is round and this one is square. All right, let's see if I can prop this here so you can see what I'm doing. The difficulties of filming alone, right? All right, so it's gonna go sit right in here. And then I have these holes where I put pins in, all right? So I'm gonna go grab those pins. Just like that. Again, this is the same as the ones I have at home. Same system. Okay, and so now the die in the bottom part of the extruder is sitting firmly in the extruder, and I'm going to spray the barrel with a little bit of water, okay, with my mister, and then I'm going to grab my clay. Okay, so the clay goes directly into the extruder. And then I'm going to get the handle. The handle ladders down on this wall piece, okay? So I'm going to push it down as far as it will go. But you'll notice it's not coming out of the bottom yet. And so I'm going to go one more time. Truthfully, I didn't put a lot of clay in there. And now I'm going to pull down on the handle and make sure that there's nobody behind me because I don't want to hit anybody in the head with this handle. I will say it takes a little bit of force, a little bit of muscle power, and hopefully what should happen is 4 coils come out the bottom. Great. So now that I have my coils, I can go pinch it off. And that is my building block for a coil pot. I take all these coils back to my working station. And you can see that my extruder is all the way at the bottom. So in order to extrude more coils, I'm going to have to put more clay in the barrel. All right, traveling back to my workstation. Now, let's say I don't have the time to use the coils now. What could I do? I can put them in a Tupperware container and save them for later. So I have a Tupperware container. Put all these coils inside. Carefully lay them down. And I know I'm going to use them in about 20 minutes, but I just want to make sure that they don't get dry while I'm setting everything else up for my coil building. So I'm going to lay them in here carefully. And then I'm going to mist the top of my Tupperware container to make sure that my coils inside stay moist and in a humid environment. All right, so the first time we took clay directly from the block. But let's imagine that I have all these scraps. You know, whatever I was working on earlier didn't work out. So I'm gonna wedge all this clay together. More kind of clay that doesn't make sense on its own. Soften up some of those edges. My canvas is already pretty wet. And I'm noticing that my clay is just a little dry, so just a little more mist. I'm trying to incorporate those multiple pieces of clay into one large block so that when it goes down through the extruder, I'm not creating air bubbles where, let's say, a wedged piece of clay meets another wedged piece of clay, and maybe it's not even, right? So I want to avoid negative space. All right, that's pretty good. I'm going to shape it now so that it fits nicely inside the barrel. All right, and we're going to head back over. So I actually have to take it all the way out. And I can just ladder it back up. And now my wedged piece of clay, which I'm going to guesstimate is about 3.5 pounds, is going to go right into the barrel. And here we go again. I'm laddering it back down, just to the point where I can get enough leverage with the handle that it will come out nicely out of the bottom. I want to make sure that my coils don't hit the floor because the floor is dirty. And if a coil does fall on the floor and I pick it up and there's no like dirt or clay from someone else, I can re-wedge it. But just to be cautious, I typically always make sure that the floor is clean because sometimes things do come out and then fall onto the floor, right? Okay. All right, so here's a coil, and when I'm done with the extruder, I'm going to take it apart, meaning pull the handle out, set it aside, take these pins out, and then I'm going to scrub it clean. All right.